injustice is the norm, doesn't it seem that it's more likely for things to be unjust than for things to be fair? What would be causing that? And how do we respond to that? And can human rights help facilitate a response? That's what I want to explore. I think that the answer is connected with competition and cooperation. My name is Vahan Bournazian. I'm from the United States and I've lived in Armenia since 2004. I have an education as a lawyer and I have taught law and I teach human rights. My experience has shown that often we see that we perceive of injustice in our life and it weighs on us and we get tired of always having to respond to it. We're constantly having to defend our dignity against injustice. So I think that it comes from the fact that in our society, in this day and age, competition is valued, highly valued. We live in a very competitive framework, and we're taught that by competing, we strive to be our best. But if we think about it, competition always requires that there be one or more losers in order for there to be a winner. So when we have a mentality that we have to be the winner, then all of us are presupposing that there has to be losers. And that perspective creates for a hierarchical environment. We are constantly competing in a hierarchy. We're constantly having to try and raise our status in the hierarchy in order to access resources, in order to access status. And I think we actually confuse status that we obtain through competition for dignity. Whereas I think we'll see that dignity is much different than status, and dignity is shared. So when we look at examples of competition, you see this in your everyday life. Why is our society so focused on competition? Well, I think that competition creates systems of control. If we look at the classroom environment, if we set up the classroom environment so that it's a hierarchy, the teacher knows more than the students, and the students must compete with each other in order to get grades, then the teacher reigns, and whatever the teacher says is true is what gets points on the exam. It's competitive, it's hierarchical, and whoever gets the red diploma is honored through status. If we look at work environments, we're living in a work environment that is highly managerial, and the managerial components are hierarchical. There's always a supervisor, and one is always trained to aspire to raise in the ranks in order to access status and wealth. If someone doesn't go up in the ranks, then it's embarrassing. What does it mean for their dignity? What does it mean for their status? So competition, an emphasis on competition facilitates hierarchy. And when we have this pyramid, we always know that someone else is higher up on the pyramid. And we seek freedom by standing on the shoulders of others. We seek our own freedom by making ourselves rise up in the pyramid of hierarchy. This is well documented in a work called Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, and he discusses how in working with impoverished and oppressed populations, he realized that the oppressed adopt the framework of their oppression. So they start to replicate that framework of repression, and they seek freedom by being able to dominate others. This dynamic, this social dynamic, appears in family violence situations where there's such pressure for the male to be the winner in the public realm that when he is not a winner in the public realm, he must impose himself as the winner or the dominant in the private realm. And we come to instances of domestic violence. So this replication of oppression, when you experience oppression in one sphere and you replicate it in order to create status for yourself, whether in another sphere or amongst colleagues or in any other way, you're reaffirming a hierarchical framework. And in order to find freedom, in order to create justice, you create unfreedom for others. In order to create justice for yourself, you create a lack of justice for others. This is the one way of being in the world. And we see that this is also replicated by, if we look at the Republican Party that ruled Armenia before, it was not so much a system of government as much as a system of resource distribution. Everyone had to find their way into a level of the Republican Party in order to access resources or be excluded. And these systems of repression work with competition. I'm sure that you have examples from your own life that you can bring to this conversation. Another aspect of competition and oppression in the Armenian context deals with preoccupation with identity, or justifiable preoccupation. I mean, Armenians have suffered centuries of domination by foreign rule. Armenians have suffered genocide, even though the genocide is recognized academically, it's not recognized in the political context. And so, as a response, in order to respond to this existential crisis, that we must be, we must exist, the study from 2014 showed that the top 3 priorities or values in Armenia are number 1, conformity, number 2, security, and number 3, individual sacrifice. So we come to a framework where, in order to be strong, in order to exist, Armenians must conform. The individual must conform to the gender expectation, to the family role. You must conform to the social expectation in order for Armenia to exist. And you also need to sacrifice. We value sacrifice. What we don't do is we don't ask whether the sacrifice that we make actually creates value, which is a totally different question. We see this with mothers, women. Women are defined by making sacrifice. It doesn't matter if that sacrifice actually produced value. Why is cooperation the opposite? How can cooperation provide for greater sense of dignity and self, both for the individual and for the community? So, first of all, we can conceive of cooperation as between individuals. We can conceive of cooperation in terms of a group, where people participate in that group. And we have to conceive of cooperation as between the individual and the society at large. I've seen 3 levels of cooperation. And cooperation is natural. There's been many social science research which shows that as an individual, when we cooperate and we help someone, we feel good about ourselves because we did something for someone else. We actually feel good. Our endorphins actually rise when we see someone else doing something good for someone else. We we actually feel better about ourselves. Cooperation is natural because it's the human evolutionary advantage. We know this from social psychology, evolutionary psychology. We know that humans are different from other primates because of our level of cooperation. We can achieve a higher degree of cooperation than other primates based on our ability to believe in something abstract, an abstract cause or an identity. So our level of cooperation is traced to the fact that humans participated in collective childcare, and that in this collective childcare, children were more likely to survive, and the group was more likely to survive. And we engage in cooperation, which goes to the point of self-sacrifice. We can make sacrifices for the group. It's because we believe that there is a group, a family, a tribe, a collective. It's all an abstract idea, but we believe in that abstraction, and we can believe in cause. And so we're willing to make sacrifices for that cause. These are all different levels of cooperation. So human evolution is based in cooperation, and it gave us a group advantage. The advantage is that the group survives better, and members in the group live better. So evolution can be seen based on individual fitness, but the real key to evolution is group fitness. Some simple examples. In Armenian villages, I have animals that need to be taken to pasture. If I take my animals to pasture every day, I don't have time to do anything else, so I organize with my neighbors so that I take all of our animals to pasture one day of the week, and my neighbors do the other days. And so this is a collective, cooperative mechanism. There are all types of organic, genuine, collective, cooperative mechanisms that we participate in. We need to recognize them. And we need to share them. The other thing we need to consider is that this type of cooperation can foster individual dignity and collective dignity, because I want to live in a society where I'm with other people who are also progressing, enjoying their dignity and their freedom. There's this concept that a developed society is only a collective of developed individuals. Any community, any society is made up of the core individual. So the more developed individuals, the more developed a society is. This concept is proven by Vahan Bournazian in his book, Development History. So a developed society is not about GDP. Developed society is not about how much money there is in the society, because it can be completely distributed in a way that helps no one. So how do we get this collective development through cooperation? The individual and the society get a mutual benefit. When society respects the individual and honors the individual is given choice. When individuals have choice, they can develop themselves. I see this with students all the time. A classic case is that parents decide that a female student should study languages or violin, but she always wanted to study law. And you know, when she finishes the conservatory and goes to study law, she's a great law student because she wanted to do it. It was her choice. When we honor the choices of individuals, individuals know for themselves what they're interested in, what their vocation is, what they can pursue, and what they can achieve. When we give the individual choice, then the individual blossoms. And they can give back to the society more, because that student could have been a translator, but she's not interested in being a translator. She always wanted to be a lawyer, so her work as lawyer is stellar, because She's invested in it. This is how there is a cooperative mechanism that exists between the individual and the society when we honor individual choice. When we give people choice, not only do they recognize what they're best at and pursue what they're best at, they also take responsibility for what they do. When you force someone to do something and they don't want to do it, they will either do it half-heartedly and then try and pass the burden on to someone else. They won't take responsibility for the failures in their work because they're forced to do it. When you allow someone to make a choice and then for them to pursue that work, they actually take responsibility and defend their work and pursue it at greater levels. They see that as their mission in their life and they want to achieve it more. So society benefits from at many levels when it respects the individual. I think that these are some of the ways in which we establish a foundation for more cooperation and for more freedom. And cooperation and freedom go together. And they're mutually reinforcing. So in order to have that freedom and have that cooperative mechanism, we need to respect the dignity of each and every one of us. So there's always two ways to be in the world, either equal with each other as by right, which allows for individual choice and pursuit, or it's going to be competition, hierarchy, and injustice, subjected to others. As Armenians, we have to face our value system. We have to understand that the existential crisis of remaining Armenian has prioritized conformity, but we also have to understand that conformity kills our greatest resource. Armenia's best resource is not any gold mine, not any hydroelectric plant, but our only resource are our individuals. And the only way we can develop our individuals is by allowing choice, by allowing individuality. The free individual pursues the vocation and does whatever they're going to do to contribute to society by will, and they take responsibility for it. This is what we have to consider.